Hi, it's Bernie Goldbach. You're in my back garden. It's the 27th of February 2011, and you're looking at dolled up teenagers en route to the annual Carama Horse Fair in Buttevant, County Cork, a 700-year-old event. Irish culture. It's all part of the Spectrum magazine cover. Shots that ran in the World Press Awards 2011. You're also in my back garden. Can you hear it? Birds above, traffic outside. And I'm going to look over some Sunday papers in the sunshine. That's the smiling face of Pat Whelan, Butcher, 43, Clonmel. We run a social media course in Tipperary Institute. We hashtag it TipSM. Pat's got the stuff. Butcher stuff, e-commerce stuff, communication stuff, an admitted social media whore. He's got a number of viable customers that can get product throughout Ireland, through our logistics network. He also does the business well. Long before the downturn, himself and 30 other businesses came together. They now are part of the Tipperary Food Producers Network. We work with them in Tipperary Institute, where I work. Pat has good stuff. So does Jennifer O'Connell. She has books. She thinks the simple book's still there forever. A place in her heart, a place on her shelves. Jennifer, don't forget audible.com. I like her chronology. Started a love affair of books as a young kid, moved to a typewriter, then into bookshops. Wanted to have time to read, carved that time out. Now has a Kindle that gives her more time to use those moments where you can just tap and go. We're teaching our little daughter how to do that as well. Enjoy bookshops. Read, just with pictures right now. All part of what it means to create. Now, as you can imagine, the Sunday Independent, Sunday Times, Sunday Business Post, all has stuff concerning Ireland. You can describe what's happened in Ireland the last few days as annihilation, elation, ovation, depending upon which party you're from. Here's what the Independent says. They do numbers. 18 seats is all Fianna Fáil is going to have. 14 from Sinn Féin, 18 for independents. But look, what I'm saying is, no matter what you hear about the election, which is tagged as GE11 across the internet, don't count on change in your pocket. You got a right-wing government here of 78 seats, replacing another right-wing government. Defining moment in the history of the Irish nation. Defining moment for Fianna Fáil. Their worst defeat ever. The wind of change is blowing in my back garden as I try to flip this paper open and show you what's inside the Independent. You can catch up on what I'm talking about on audioboo.fm, on www.insideview.ie. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do this. Flip papers open because the wind is so beautiful. Okay, Willie O'D, who's right down the street in Limerick, attacks Ryan Cowan's leadership. He says Fianna Fáil had a communication problem. Yeah, in a sense, not being able to talk about the meltdown as it was happening ensures that you're going to be blamed for it. Is that right? Inside the Independent, some other interesting things about vote management, vote strategies, winnings and losing with bar graphs. And then the bottom story here is this guy lurking in the corner, Jean-Claude Trichet. Daniel McConnell asked, who needs enemies when you have him in the corner, stealing your money, telling you how to behave? And that's really the issue here. Sure, there's a new government, but they're going to be told by Jean-Claude Trichet and other Brussels crats that they're going to have to pay people who have bonds and banks. And that's going to suck. Sunday Times has a similar story. Kenny's going to be a new Taoiseach, they say. Dublin leads the Fianna Fáil meltdown. Crushed Fianna Fáil was as a political force. Like I said, online GE11 just points it out. Lots of other news articles, major broadsheets with the Associated Press, the Wall Street Journal, all covering what's unfolding in Ireland. But inside the papers, there's technology, there's innovation, there's stuff that'll keep your mind off of dismay if you're a politician, and keep your mind off of things except maybe studying. Kathy Foley does that. She talks about access for everyone. There's a real test. Now I'm working with a deaf student in a third level education and one who's visually impaired. He's legally blind. And here's what's happening in the back end. What's happening is there are resources that are being squeezed. So some of those resources are being squeezed on ebooks. I'm trying to get ebooks in the program I'm using with the Dell Redundant Workers Association. Ex-Dell employees using EGF money on Twitter. If you follow the tag EGF Dell, you'll see what I'm talking about. including some visuals that show us working with a deaf woman. And the other thing is, there's support for these programs that is going to be hit. It's happening now where I work. So the incoming government is going to be faced with cutting things to the bone. We deal with this. ICT, EDU is one of the NICs we use in Tipperary Institute for a 14th of May program. We're going to talk about this stuff in workshops. Inside the paper, more information about innovation. Maurice Chittenden gets the story from Apple. And it's about the golden handcuffs deal that Johnny Ive has. If you're going to pay innovators, you're going to get innovation. Johnny Ive now has 21 million sterling coming at him, and definitely a lot more than that. If he stays around with Apple, he's trying to educate his kids in England, but Apple's board saying, look, you want these shares, you have to stay here. If you don't know the backstory in Apple, design is everything. Leading with design. Steve's sick. Johnny's important to the survival of the company. In the Sunday Business Post, business stuff that follows on the heels of a coalition that's going to unfold between Fine Gael and Labour. Front page story with the smiling face of Enda Kenny. As my newspaper goes blowing in the background. People that got really stiffed by the meltdown. Mary Coughlin, who couldn't handle a brief. Dick Roach, who really liked his shirts. And Barry Andrews, who's thinking about what's ahead now as the Minister for Children in a really competitive constituency. Inside the paper, that's Adrian Weckler pointing out that the three strikes law is on the way. Hasn't done a thing for other countries who try to stop file sharing. You know, he says, look, the irony of the three strikes law, it's going to do nothing to address the issue of music file sharing. And he speaks from experience of other countries. He likes these Android phones. He gives a spotlight on that. Cool stuff. We use Android phones in the EZF Dell program. We use the Android phone made by Sony Ericsson called the X8. Hey, look, Tip SM. If you're following that tag, Adrian points out new TDs and senators are going to get lessons in social networking. They'll learn how it means to be a true friend on Facebook, how to spoof an identity, how to use stuff like Word too. And a course about social networking. But that's the tender. Digital marketing summits out there. A little pimp here for CyberCon. It's at the end of the month of March. More stuff about social networking inside the paper. Social media enhances audience understanding is what the article says. James Enright writes the story. Hard to see it when there's a wind here. But the interesting thing about the story is there's a 2011 Irish Digital Marketing Sentiment Survey pointing out interesting things about Facebook and Twitter and all that. But here's another thing. Email remains the most popular online marketing format used by more than 2/3 of the participants in the survey. They ask about stuff like Facebook and LinkedIn. They're second most popular. So like 66% email, 55% social media, social networks. Face of Column Lion, Facebook, saying, we didn't come here because it was cheap, we came here because of talent. Gavin Daly's got that article. I'm not sure that's true. But hey, his point is negative international perceptions of Ireland don't matter to Facebook. Right, what's negative about Irish pubs? What's negative about Irish social life? What's negative about Irish creativity? And look, if the wind's with me, we can show you the face of Keith Bohanna. You see him? Internet consultant, getting the right online mix. Elena Reagan writes the story, and the wind's going to blow poor Keith away. Now, I don't know if I can flip the page anymore. I mean, do we need to? Do we really need to? I could show you the wind overhead, the birds flying, the garden I'm trying to maintain. Flickr.com/photos/Irish Eyes will give you more of that. That's me in the shadows. And that's my little windmill. If I had it hooked up to a battery today, I could probably recharge all my phones and not have to ever plug them in. Thanks for listening. Catch up with me. I'm topgold on Twitter or www.insideview.ie if you want to have the rest of the written word.